I'd like to thank all of our sponsors. They're listed in the program, but I'm especially grateful to Ivos, Acero Cárdenas, Cayaso, Florentine, and Kyle, David Holliday and the Open Society Foundation, Vic Johnson and NAFSA, Eric and Della Koenig Foundation, Management Sciences for Development, Cheryl Warden and Ruben Snipper, and Alex Wilde and Ann Berrettini. I know I don't say that right, Ann. One of these years I'm going to get that. Finally, we want to extend our appreciation to Reynaldo Robledo and the Robledo family winery, and to Kim Wee at Field to City for their donations of wine for this evening. Thank you very much. I'd also like to recognize Ambassador Sarucan from Mexico and Ambassador Alchu from El Salvador, who are joining us this evening as well. And I didn't see the seating chart right before I came in, but I'd also like to recognize Gail Garcia Bernal's parents. We are grateful to the OAS for hosting us in this incredibly lovely setting. And it's especially appropriate this year to be here, as the OAS has designated 2011 as the Inter-American Year of Culture, to promote and showcase examples of the successful use of the arts for positive social change. So we're proud to be here tonight, and thank you to the OAS. And finally, I have to thank Lori Piccolo, the development staff at WOLA, and actually all the staff at WOLA, because what you see tonight is the gala, but this is actually an entire week of events with our honorees. And it's required a rather all-hands-on-deck approach, and so pretty much the entire staff has been involved in the preparations for this week. And so I'd just like to thank all of them. And the WOLA board members, could you raise your hands? Just so people can see who you are. They're scattered about. Okay, we're going to do one presentation and then you're allowed to eat, and then we will be back to finish up. Our theme for tonight is Migration and Development, Stories that Make a Difference. The honorees we've chosen tonight reflect WOLA's efforts to explore new directions, find new tools for doing advocacy work, and new ways to become a force for human rights in changing times. At the same time, the themes and honorees for tonight are strongly rooted in WOLA's core values. WOLA was founded on the idea of empowering all alternate voices. Nearly 40 years ago, after the brutal coup in Chile, people who had been working on the ground in Chile came to Washington with stories of what they stories of what really had been happening in Chile. And WOLA was formed out of an urgent need to expose these stories of human rights abuse, torture, and disappearance, and to redirect U.S. policy. These stories, based on real-life experiences, had power. WOLA continues to rely on this core principle. We change policy by empowering the voices of people who are struggling for human dignity. This principle informs our analysis and our advocacy. It guides our collaborative work with partners in the region, and I believe it is how we gain access and credibility, because we bring new sources of information from voices that are not usually heard in Washington. In the end, WOLA's influence is rooted in the power of people telling their own stories, stories that challenge prevailing policies, stories that reinterpret reality in ways that open new possibilities. We bring a sense of urgency to this year's Human Rights Award as we focus on stories that make a difference in connecting the issues of migration and development. The unearthing of mass graves in Tamaulipas and other parts of Mexico over the past year exposed the horrors of violence against migrants. Best estimates indicate that about 20,000 migrants that transit Mexico to the United States are kidnapped each year. and that's probably a low estimate. I want you to think about that for a minute. 20,000 people being kidnapped as they go through Mexico. It's really stunning. 6 in 10 women, it's estimated, are raped while in transit. And the migrant shelters in Mexico that offer humanitarian assistance to migrants are increasingly targets. Corrupt officials, gangs, organized crime are all implicated. Migrants are often invisible and their stories untold. The migrant journey is by its nature a silent one. If undocumented migrants advocate on their own behalf, their journey will likely end. Migrants are people who are forced to become invisible to survive. And because they are invisible, it's much more likely that their rights will be violated. This year, we are honoring Gael Garcia Bernal for his work to make us more aware of the migrant story in The Invisibles, The Invisibles, 4 short documentaries he worked on with Mark Silver and Amnesty International. He follows one of the most dangerous journeys in the world, that of migrants transiting Mexico to the US. Here we see the courage of people who know that they will face unspeakable dangers and still decide to take the risk for a better future. Seeing that migrants face, seeing what migrants face in transit, you can't help but wonder why people would take such risks. In part, thank you. In part because they have no other choice. The harsh realities of dire poverty, spiraling violence, and the absence of hope at home force people to find another way. Many migrants come from impoverished rural areas. People should have the right not to migrate. They should see a future at home. And this is why we've chosen to honor Sedeco, for pioneering alternative models to rural development throughout Central America. Sedeco has shown that ecologically sensitive development helps small-scale farmers prosper and strengthens local communities, thus relieving the push factors behind migration. As I mentioned, WOLA was founded on the idea of empowering alternative voices to bring change. And that's why we've decided to honor Ambulante. Documentaries and storytelling have the power to open our eyes to the previously invisible. Ambulante, founded by Gael, Diego Luna, who is with us here tonight, and Pablo Cruz, bring documentary films to places where they would not otherwise be seen. They train people in marginalized communities to tell their own stories through film, making film a vehicle for people to advocate on their own behalf. Tonight, we shed light on the invisible stories behind the issue of migration. The stories of people who some label illegal, but who in fact are too often the victims of terrible crimes and abuse. These are stories of people who would prefer to stay in their homes with their families if they had access to opportunity. They are stories of people of great courage. And above all, they are stories of people who have the right to be secure, the right to dignity. Migrants are people who have rights, whether they're in Costa Rica, in Mexico, or in Alabama. I've been inspired by the work of our honorees, and I hope that you will be too. We are grateful to all of you for joining us tonight and to all of you who support WOLA.